If you've been in a relationship long enough, you know that eventually you'll start getting on each other's nerves. Maybe it's the way they chew, or they don't help out around the house much, or they don't support your passions. The best solution is always good communication. Maybe bring in a therapist to make sure you can get there. But if that doesn't work out, you could always have the neighbors over for a visit. It's The Invite. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. All right, this is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing The Invite. The Invite, written by McCormack and Rashida Jones, directed by Olivia Wilde, starring Seth Rogen, Olivia Wilde, Penelope Cruz, and Edward Norton. And per usual, for a complete listing of the cast and crew, you can check out the link in our show notes. It is just me today. Okay, The Invite is a movie about a disillusioned married couple who are going through a tough time in their relationship, and they have a dinner party, or they invite their neighbors over, to their upstairs neighbors, to come over and see the new renovations to their apartment and to have a bit of a dinner, a little hangout, a little chill sesh. The disillusioned married couple is played by Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde, and the neighbors are played by Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton. One of the main conflicts of the movie is that the upstairs neighbors, Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz, are having a lot of loud sex, which is disruptive to Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde, and it's also highlighting the parts of the relationship that they are dissatisfied with. I was told that the inspiration of this movie was 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men is one of my favorite movies. I think it's also a play, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of my favorites. I know that. And I saw it when I was in 8th grade, maybe. I think our teacher showed it to us, and it was very, very, very good. It really set the tone for any movie about a jury that came after it will be compared to 12 Angry Men. But one of the main parts about that is that it was all set in one room. The entire movie takes place in one room, and that is what is happening in The Invite. This movie does a very good job of playing with tension. From the very beginning, there is an instance in which Olivia and Seth Rogen, I'm forgetting their character names, so you're going to have to bear with me. Olivia and Seth Rogen are in a fight from the very beginning, and the tension is just continuing to ratchet up. They're in a fight about whether or not they told each other about the neighbors coming over. They're in a fight about whether or not Seth Rogen can eat the cheese despite being hungry, or eat a pickle despite being hungry. They are, Olivia Wilde is making a souffle. There is just a lot going on. He gives her a compliment at one point and says that her top looks very nice on her, and she responds, "You could say things like that to me," or "You never say anything like that to me." It was a response that indicated that he never says stuff like that to her, even though he just did, which was, it's very indicative of a couple who is sick of each other, that type of fighting. And so that is the initial tension that Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz are kind of walking into. This is a very performance-driven film, and it's wild because plot-wise, we're really going from charged moment to charged moment. We're not necessarily going from it's really just like a work up to a certain point, and then the movie is about to end. It's an hour and 47 minutes. I think it probably could have been even tighter, but an hour and 47 minutes is pretty good. And I'm sitting here wondering, I'm like, well, I guess would that be considered real time? There weren't really a lot of cuts, I would say, from one part to a different part. So yeah, I think it's pretty close to real time, if not completely in real time, not like one shot or anything like that. I think the easiest way to talk about this is to talk about the performances and then talk about maybe some of the fights. Olivia Wilde directs this movie, but she also, to me, is the standout actor in this film. Followed very closely by Seth Rogen, then followed very closely by their interactions between them. Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz also did a good job, but what they had to do was different from what Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde had to do. They were really, in some ways, oblivious to the tension, or better yet, not engaging the tension, or engaging the tension in a way that, oblivious to the tension is the wrong word. The way in which they engaged the tension was often to diffuse it, was to acknowledge that it was there, direct it in a different way, or acknowledge it was there and attempt to resolve it. But it wasn't like the tension, they weren't experiencing the discomfort that the audience is feeling from this relationship that's kind of unraveling in front of us. So they didn't have to do as much work. Olivia Wilde is performing white womanness in a very, very excellent way. It almost reminds me of, I'm going to forget her name. I think it's Kate. I forgot her name. She's on Instagram. She always does these white woman characters, and they're always hilarious. I don't even think I can look up her name she only pops up. I follow her on Instagram and I do not know her name, but every time she shows up at something, I'm so happy to see her. Anyway, she does a very good job of being like the trope of the white woman, and Olivia Wilde is nailing just a particular type of white woman that we all know. If you see the film, you'll be like, oh, I know her. Yeah, this is like, there's some anxiety there. There is this sense of wanting to be liked and wanting to be accepted, but also wanting things in a very particular way, but also not wanting to be seen as uncool or as a Karen or as any type of unacceptable white woman. Just this kind of crippling self-awareness, I would call it. Olivia Wilde is performing it excellently. I mean, it's palpable through the screen. I really, really feel what's happening. Her with Seth Rogen, the fact that they're allowed to kind of in some ways be openly hostile to each other makes this the type of movie that a different version of this would be watching people play nice and then unravel over the film. Whereas this one is more like, there's no hiding the tension that exists between these two. There's no hiding it. So it is still simmering, and it is still kind of sometimes played beneath the surface, but it's also, Seth Rogen's role is kind of there to be like, no, I'm upset, and I do want to talk about this, and this is upsetting to me. But yeah, sure, I'll play along for your dinner party. That's kind of what he's doing. He's like, yeah, sure, let's go eat. Yeah, sure, let's take a tour. I'm going to smoke a J. It's very much that is kind of what he's doing throughout the course of the movie. Whereas Olivia Wilde is more like, is everybody okay? Okay. Oh, honey, don't do that. Don't do that. And she's showing anxiety in a way that I think she thinks that she's still trying to do a good job of hiding it, but everyone can tell that she is having a tough time. And so when this movie gets to kind of its main point, which is that relationships are hard, especially if you've been in one with a person for a long time, and the ways in which we blame each other i.e. the closest person that we can find for our dissatisfaction, it does that very well. I've been in many relationships in which I felt, many is the wrong word. I've been in relationships in which I felt ultimately dissatisfied about what was happening in the relationship. And I have blamed partners for it. I've been like, this is happening because I'm in the wrong relationship, not because I'm unhappy in any other way, or not because I'm failing to communicate in a way that would be effective. And several times the ethos of this movie is really saying, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to change that? How are you going to change your circumstances in front of you? What can you do differently? And it's wild because I watch a movie like this and I automatically start thinking about myself and say, yeah, well, what would I change about me? What could I do differently? The problem is I often assume that it's me, which Seth Rogen does well. Seth Rogen does a very good job of there's an allusion to something happening and Seth being surprised that he would be included in the something that's happening. That's a very thinly veiled, trying to keep it away from spoilers here, but he's like, oh, also me? And I feel that with him, where I'm just like, oh, I would also be included in this? Or, oh, you're interested in me? Or, oh, yes, you're talking to me. That type, whenever I think about that feeling, I know that is the feeling of self-inadequacy or surprise, to be desired or to be wanted in a certain way is, it is something that it hurts relationships. And I think that they performed it that well is, I mean, it's just very good. I'm not doing a very good job because it's hard to talk about this movie without just straight up saying what's going on. So I'll jump into spoilers real quick, starting now. I would encourage you that if you're going to see this movie, to go see it and then come back and listen to the spoilers. But I think it's important to really get into the nitty gritty of what the movie's about. So I'm going to talk about some spoilers. So the whole thing is that their upstairs neighbors they're polyamorous, they're swingers, and they have come downstairs because they want to invite Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde to have sex with them, to have group sex with them. And it's Seth Rogen is surprised. He's like, wait, also me? Like, you would also want me to be a part of this? Which is very subtle, but it also speaks to something very specific that I know of myself as a man. And I won't talk more generally about men, but it will say the idea that I could be included or I could be desired is somewhat novel. And I think he does a very good job of performing that. Penelope Cruz is meant to be kind of like the facilitator, very sexy throughout the film. And so when the sex parts start coming up, there's a way in which she is approaching it where she feels like she is facilitating the connection for all four of them, followed closely by Edward Norton, who is kind of doing a similar role, but not exactly what Penelope Cruz is doing. He's more like he almost gives more RA camp counselor vibes, like, hey guys, if you're upset, let's try to work through this. Come on, let's all work together. He's more being amenable to the situation that is unfolding in front of him, whereas the more resistance is coming from Seth Rogen. And this kind of I'm trying to figure out, in Olivia Wilde's case, she is very interested and very game for what could happen next between them. She doesn't need much convincing to say, yes, absolutely, let's do this. I've heard Penelope Cruz's orgasms from upstairs. I would like that. How can I also be a part of this? And so, the tension that exists between Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen comes out of this kind of resentment towards each other, for each of them being the perceived source of their unhappiness. I am unhappy because my wife makes me miserable. I am unhappy because my husband is miserable. And it's funny because Seth Rogen at one point says, why don't you just let me be miserable? And Olivia Wilde is like, you have nothing to be miserable about. You are working in the field that you graduated in and you live in a beautiful house. And he's like, well, I don't own the house and I'm not playing music, I'm teaching music. And neither of them, they're kind of talking past each other in this specific way. And there's one part in which there's an indication that Olivia Wilde doesn't want to be a stay-at-home mom, that she would rather be using her art skills to be doing something because she went to art school and is an artist. And then there's an indication that they used to be best friends and they're just not there anymore. So it's they play around with all of the tension, and it's interesting that the vehicle to kind of express the tension ultimately is group sex with their neighbors, or the idea or possible group sex with their neighbors, I'll say. So overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was pretty good. You know, it feels like in the same family of movies as the drama. Definitely more going on emotionally in this film than in quite a few other films. I mean, I just saw The Odyssey, so I think there's more going on emotionally in this film than in The Odyssey. I think The Odyssey does a pretty good job, but someone described it as saying it was a beautiful technical film, but it didn't make them feel anything. And I remember thinking, yeah, I could see that this is more on the Odyssey is more on the wow factor than on the feelings factor, even though it tries to insert the feelings in there. And I did feel things, but I feel like in terms of feelings to impressive ratio, impressive was higher than feelings, whereas this one, very high on the feelings. Like, the performances were very good, very impressive. There's nothing technically great about this film. I mean, it's just and technical in the sense of there's no big set pieces or anything like that. They're just in a house having a discussion. It's very much like a one-act play or a two-act play, like very much black box theater almost, where it's like it's not even important the props or the thing that's in there. It's really the performances that matter the most. Yeah, but it really did make me feel and I watched it first thing in the morning, so I'm still little groggy waking up, all that, but it still hit me right in the feels. It kind of reminds me of, I just watched The Roses, and I think The Roses used more of all of the movie making toolkit that they have, meaning the scenes and the places and the sets, the costume design. All of that is way more important in a movie like that, which also is about relationships, than something like The Invite, where this is more about the bare bones performances. With all of that being said, I think it's a 4-star movie. I did not like it as much as I liked the drama. I think the drama did a little bit better job of conveying the isolation of truth in a way that this one is more about the conflict of reality. And it might feel like I'm just making up words, but the conflict of reality, meaning that to exist and to be in partnership with someone means that in reality you are living in conflict. Now, some people would be like, no, you're not. Well, there is some conflict there because it's a different person. You have to make decisions together. You're never really just thinking of something you want to do. You're thinking of what is best for both of you, which is a conflicted reality, as opposed to having stated something and having to deal with the fallout of the truth being out in the open, which is what the drama is doing. Both of them are dealing with relationships with other people, and maybe I just prefer one over the other. But I just think the drama, it drew me into this better. It's kind of like the same way that I've really recently wanted to rewatch Past Lives. I've really wanted to rewatch that because I think that is another thing that is very good at confronting kind of both the conflict of reality and the isolation of truth. Meaning that when the truth is out, how isolating it could feel. and then living in a reality that is by many, that's conflicted. By all accounts, is very conflicted. So yeah, I give this 4 stars. I don't even know if I reviewed this movie as much as I just talked existentially about a lot of things that are bothering me while losing some of my words. But yeah, this is it's a 4-star movie. I think it's a 4-star movie. I give it the same as The Odyssey because I think it's the feeling spectrum in the opposite direction, while not being a big visual spectacle. But feelings wise, I really felt this movie. 4 stars. And with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh, It's Big Ron Studios. Currently, it is Friday morning. Right now, it's noon. I got to this movie at 9:20. Watched it first thing so I can edit this on Sunday or maybe later today or tomorrow, who knows, so I can get this out for Monday. Keep the train rolling along. Just got back from a 1.5 week long recording trip. Went to LA for a week, then to New York for 3 days. Now I'm back. And I am writing and editing and about to announce the newest Oh, It's Big Ron Studios project. That announcement will come first on Patreon. My goal is to announce it very soon on Patreon. I am my own biggest enemy. I have to actually film the announcement, make sure I know what I'm saying, make sure it's a video that makes sense. Then I have to edit the video, put it on Patreon, while also planning to watch a movie, put that out, while also writing, listening to, highlighting, editing, cutting tape, getting ready to give it to my editor so we can go back and forth about writing full episodes of the new podcast. It's a lot of labor. It's a labor of love, but it's still labor. If that means something to you, join the Patreon. Go to patreon.com/ohitsbigron or go to the link in our show notes. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about The Invite, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, or Letterboxd at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. You can find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows by following us on Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm performing white womanness in a very, very excellent way.